She lives in a lovely neighborhood. If you live there, they say you're living good. Pretty lawns with fancy landscapes. She stares ahead with a blank gaze in her lovely neighborhood where the living is good.
Good afternoon. My name is Marc Gertz. For many of you in this time spot, you're used to listening to Jay Kaplan, who unfortunately passed away on December 15th, and I will be taking this spot from 3 to 4 and then 4 to 5. We are going to turn things around a little bit. The intro that you heard was the jazz and blues singer Angie Wells, and that song that you heard was Where the Living is Good, which is available online. And that's kind of what this show is going to be about. The name of this show is Reverse Your Thinking. And what we hope to do over the course of the next hour is to reverse some of your thinking about different topics and different things that you may have heard about, that you may be talking about with your friends, or that you may have always wondered about. We encourage you to call in and speak to us. The station call-in number is 951-922-3532. We have a great guest this afternoon who I'm going to tell you about in a little while. In the meantime, to kick off the show, I was reading a opinion article in the Times. It struck me that this was a great way to kick off this show, and also a great way to sort of kick off the year, because what the author was talking about, who is Frida Giedis, who is a world affairs columnist and a columnist for World Politics Review, about the world's tyrants. Now, what she means by this, and I quote, is that a year ago, Russia was accusing the United States of hysteria for claiming that Moscow planned to invade Ukraine. Even Ukraine was skeptical, she says. The leaders of China and Russia, looking confident, seemed prepared to defy the world. Democracy was on the defensive across the globe, from South America to Asia, and a historic test was about to play out. Well, here we are 12 months later, and my, how things have changed. Parts of Ukraine lie in ruins, but autocratic leaders around the world are now the ones who are faltering. Shortly after taking office, President Biden declared, "We've got to prove democracy works." Notice that it was an open question. A year ago, the conversation that we were having was whether or not autocracy or democracy was going to rule the world in the second half of this century. And here we are a year later, and my, how things have changed. Notice, as I said, that it was an open question. How many believe now that Russia, China, or Iran offer a better model than an open society with all of its foibles and challenges? And boy, haven't we seen those foibles and challenges this week in Congress. In 2022, democracy fought back with astounding determination and conviction, and yes, idealism as well. It's a great way to keep in mind the difference that a year can make in the lives of so many of us. I encourage you to communicate with me with your opinions on this at 951-922-3532. In addition to these things, one of the things that Jay had on his show, if you recall, is that Jay spent a lot of time talking about reverse mortgages. And that's how I became acquainted with Jay, because I'm a reverse mortgage broker too, and an accredited financial counselor. And what accredited financial counseling is all about is dealing with your emotional aspects, your emotional interests in relation to your money. Why you do the things that you do. Why do you do the things that you do? What are the motivating factors that encourage you to make the decisions you make? A lot of people believe that what they do is caused by the activating events in their lives, by the outside forces that impress upon them the decisions that they have to make. But I don't necessarily believe that's true. I believe that what you believe about those things is what determines whether or not you make a decision that's going to positively or negatively affect you. Because, ultimately, there's only three ways you can feel about anything. You can feel positively, you can feel negatively, or you can feel neutrally, right? Let me give you an example of that. Suppose into the room comes a big snake, big 15-foot boa constrictor, real biggie. Okay. Well, one person might say, "Oh my God, that's a snake. I hate snakes," and be totally afraid. Be a very negative reaction. Another person might say, "Wow, that's a snake. That's terrific. I love snakes." The third person might look at that snake and say, I never met a snake that I liked. I never met a snake that I didn't like. No big deal. Well, it's one snake. How could one snake create three different feelings? Well, because it's not the snake that creates the feelings, folks. It's what you believe about that snake that creates those feelings. You see, most of us don't think about what we think about. We think about what we do, and we think about how we feel, but we don't think about what we think about. And therefore, we don't know that our thoughts are what's causing us to feel that way. And that applies to money too. How do you use your money? Angie Wells in the opening song talked about living in a community that's really, really good. And isn't that what we all want? Isn't that what we want for our kids and for our families and for ourselves? To live in a safe place, to have money in the bank, to not have the stress of understanding where our money's going or whether or not we can pay our bills. But who's responsible for that? Is the snake responsible for that? Or are we responsible for that? Of course, we're responsible for the decisions that we make. We're responsible for the way that we manage our money and how we accumulate wealth. And those are some of the things that we're going to talk about on this show over the coming weeks. How do you accumulate wealth? How do you discipline yourself to make the decisions that are going to positively impact your present and your future? Financial planners always say that you're supposed to have 6 months' income in the bank. How many people can actually say they have that? Not that many. How many people can say they have enough money saved for their retirement? Not that many. That's right. These are the things that we are going to discuss. How can we control the situation and put ourselves in a position so that we're living where it's good? That's what we all want. And that's the kind of program that we're going to do now, called Reverse Your Thinking. Reverse your thinking about how you think about money. Reverse your thinking about the different types of jobs and the different types of career paths that you might want to go on. Reverse your thinking about the advisors that you need to bring into your life. And we're going to bring a lot of those advisors onto this show. And you're going to get an opportunity to hear about why they do what they do and what they do and what the value of that is to you. Is it to your advantage to hire someone to manage your money that gets a commission? Or are you better off hiring somebody that you pay a fee to? We don't know, but we're going to reverse your thinking about how you think about that. We're going to talk about reverse mortgages. Jay would love this part. All right. We're going to talk about reverse mortgages. We're going to talk about the pros and the cons. We're going to talk about why some of you think that it's a scam to steal your house by the bank when in fact it isn't. But we're going to see if we can reverse your thinking about those things too. We're going to reverse your thinking about attorneys. We're going to reverse your thinking about different types of people that do different types of service jobs that many people are skeptical about and don't understand quite why they need somebody like that in their life. Those are the type of things we're going to discuss. We're going to talk with attorneys. We're going to talk with CPAs. We may even talk with dog catchers and find out why they do that. And reverse your thinking about whether or not a dog catcher is good for your community. These are the type of things that we're going to cover on Reverse Your Thinking. Now, how do you sell a home with a reverse mortgage? Can you sell a home with a reverse mortgage? Well, the answer is yes, you can. And just like with a traditional mortgage, reverse mortgage borrowers are free to sell their home whenever they like. In addition to that, and most of you probably don't know this, you have the right to make payments on your reverse mortgage just like it was a traditional mortgage. As a matter of fact, in simple terms, you could say that a reverse mortgage is just like your 30-year mortgage, except you get the option not to make payments. Did you know that? Maybe you did. Maybe you didn't. Can we reverse your thinking about that? I don't know. We're going to try. And we hope that you have questions about that. And we hope that you call us at 951-922-3532. We want to hear from you. We want to understand what it is that you have questions about, what you don't understand, why you don't understand the value of using certain people to help you do things. How many of you do your own taxes? Should you use a CPA or a tax preparer? I don't know. Let's find out. Let's find out why it is that some people seem to be able to accumulate wealth and other people just live month to month. Let's find out about that. Let's find out about why it is that people go into careers where they don't make any money. Do you have a career like that? Some people do. They're happy that way. Some people aren't. How do we change that? Let's reverse our thinking about those things as well. Are we going to delve into politics? Possibly. Religion? Maybe. Where do you want us to take this show? This is your show. I'm here just to make it work for you and to help you and your friends reverse your thinking about all different types of topics. This is the kickoff show for 2023. We give our best to Jay Kaplan and hope that he's well wherever he is, and the best to his family. And we move into 2023, and hopefully we're going to be able to reverse your thinking about lots and lots of different things in this coming year. Sounds good to me. How about you? Let's hear from you. Give us a call. 951-922-3532. Are you driving? Don't drive and talk at the same time. Pull over and give us a call. We want to hear from you. This is Marc Gertz on Reverse Your Thinking on KMET. And we're back on Reverse Your Thinking. Today's guest, our kickoff guest, is Tara Ballman. She serves as the executive director for the National Aging in Place Council. Many life experiences cultivated her passion and motivation to help other families navigate through the stages of aging and proactively plan for their future needs, regardless of what life throws at them. Now, she educates and connects seniors and their families with products and services that help make aging easier, going far beyond just healthcare needs, but focusing on housing, finances, transportation, and social activities as well. And she's written 3 books on many, many different topics and co-hosts the NIPAC podcast. Okay. Good afternoon, Tara.
Hi, thanks for having me on. I'm honored to be your first guest. This is great.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So listen, I have to ask you, tell us about the NIPAC podcast.
Oh, so that is called Aging in Place Conversations with Ryan and Tara. That's something we do every other week. And we just talk about professionals in the marketplace and what got them involved and what they, why they do what they do.
Uh-huh.
About 90% of our members are in the aging services world because of personal experiences, and they want to help other people go through things a little bit easier than what they did with their family. So it's just a way that we reach out and let people know resources that are available across the country in all 50 states.
That sounds great. Maybe you can define for our listeners what exactly aging in place means. And
Yes,
and also because I do, what are what are the five pillars of aging?
yes. So, aging in place, I think most people think about aging in place as the place they live their whole lives, they raise their children, and now that's where they're going to pass and spend their final days. But I guess that's kind of an old way of thinking about aging in place, but really, we're all aging in place. I'm talking to you right now from the office in my house where I'm also aging in place. So, really, the role of our organization and the goal is to educate people on the resources out there, whether you're 40 or whether you're 80, what the resources are, what your goals are, and how to stay in the home that you're in, because wherever you are now is your home, how to stay there as safely, as securely, if it's financially viable or not. And when it's no longer safe or when you want to move on, how to do that and what the options are out there available to you. Because, if you start planning when you're 40, you have a whole different range of options available than,
Hmm.
say, if a crisis hits you when you're 70 and then you start planning. There's still people
Sure.
out there to help you, but your resources are a little bit less. So
Okay.
our organization is built on what we consider the five pillars of aging, which because you are also a member of NAIPC, but that is housing, healthcare, finance, transportation, and social engagement. So really, all of our members fall under one of those five pillars. And for you to have a really successful aging in place plan, we really help people address all five of those pillars instead of just say housing or finance, which is what everyone tends to focus on. But to fully support your foundation, you
Hmm.
really need all five of those in place.
Well, let me ask you a question. If a consumer, whether it's someone who is a senior or their kids or something, um, if they want to take advantage of this, what does it cost for them to join NIPAC?
Oh, well, for the consumers and caregivers, families out there, it's free. All of our education is completely free. If you're a professional, there's a fee to join. We are a nonprofit trade association. So depending on if you're a nonprofit or what you do, the prices do vary. But our services to the public are all free.
I see. Okay. So in terms of the professionals that are members of NIPAC, what would be the difference to the consumer in terms of using somebody from NIPAC who's a member compared to, let's say, somebody advertising in AARP's magazine?
Well, everyone that's a member of our organization, our mission is education focused. So we are not here for leads. We are not here to generate business. We're not a BNI. We are solely to provide support to caregivers. So a lot of the leads that we get are just people helping other people and referring out. We do refer, obviously, to other people, but all of our members, the one requirement we have that does really separate us from other groups is a background check. So we require all new applications to be submitted with a background check, and then every 3 years, you have to submit a new one as well. So it's a little extra level that we have to
Hmm.
protect the older adults out there. And then we also have an ethics committee that's made up of 6 or 8 attorneys that really kind of handles any complaints that we receive, which we, knock on wood, we've been around for 15 years and we haven't had any kind of complaint related to
Sure.
the way a senior was treated. So, I think our members take an extra step. And if anyone's looking for someone in their area, you can search our directory at ageinplace.org, and that can connect you with the resources. And if there's no one in your area, please reach out to us because we have connections across the country and internationally, quite honestly.
Hmm. Where are we internationally?
Well, we have a big audience during Aging in Place Week last year. We had a lot of people from Brazil, Canada, and Mexico listen in, which I was really surprised by that mix.
An interesting mix. That's an interesting mix. But you know, there are people aging all over the world, so
Yes.
it makes perfect sense. It
Yes.
makes perfect sense. Can I ask you a little bit more about the background checks? I mean, I would imagine that our older listeners might be really interested in something like that.
Yes.
What does that entail?
Well, it's just like when you go for your employment, or a lot of people in our industry, you have to have background checks for a
Hmm.
lot of the roles. So it's really just the same as a background check when you go to. I'm trying to think of now someone who requires background checks, and my mind is drawing a blank. But we really look at the criminal history. Um, Driving history always shows up, but that's not something we look at. But I always find that part interesting.
Hmm.
So we're really just making sure that they're on the up and up. And a lot of times when people find out about that background check, if there's something a little shady in their background, they don't move forward with us. And that's really the intent, is to provide the most ethical professional services to older adults across the country.
Well, that's great. And speaking of driving, um, your section of the book on aging in place conversations was related to transportation. Can you talk for a couple of minutes about your answers in that book?
Yes, I would love to. So, the book that you're referring to is Aging in Place Conversations: What Industry Experts Have to Say. That was just released in October on Amazon. We made it up to number 9 in Amazon in the aging category. So, I'm really proud of our members for that. There's 20 of us that participated,
Uh-huh.
and we really took the top questions that are asked of us and put it into a Q&A format in this book. So, one of the areas that I addressed was transportation, and it's not really my background. So I found it really, really interesting, the options that are available out there. I think transportation is one of those that's overlooked so much because people aren't aware that there are other options out there. AARP did a survey not too long ago, and 78% of baby boomers considered driving as their key to their independence, but they had no idea what to do once the keys were taken away. So I think this
Wow.
is one of those topics where if you just start having the conversations ahead of time, so you're
Mhm.
not relying on your family or your neighbors to drive you around, and you know your other options, it's going to make people more comfortable talking about uncomfortable situations because, quite frankly, they're going to be less uncomfortable. So I think a
Right.
lot of people are familiar with, like at the senior centers, there's arranged transportations and shuttle buses and things like that. You can
Mhm.
call your area senior center and they can certainly connect you with those resources. But there's also in our industry called the area agencies on aging. We call them AAAs, but everybody else calls AAA something else. So it's not the car service, it's the area agency on aging. And they have an elder care call center where they can connect people with resources anywhere. But the number one call, from what I understand, the research that I've done, is related to transportation. So they can
Wow.
connect you anywhere in the country with resources that are available to you through the area agency on aging and the elder care locator hotline.
What's the name of that again?
It is the Elder Care Call Center through the Area Agency on Aging. And their phone number, I happen to have it, is
Wonderful.
1-800-677-1116.
Can you say that again?
Sure, 800-677-1116. That's the Elder Care Call Center.
That's great. That's
Yes.
Which reminds me, speaking about phone numbers, if any of you listening out there would like to talk to Tara about any of these topics, you can call us at 951-922-3532. Again, that's 951-922-3532. I know we're coming into rush hour out there, so many of our listeners are probably behind the wheel. So I wouldn't recommend that you pick up the phone right now. Perhaps you should pull over and then you can give us a call and talk to Tara. Um, One of the things that you just said, you talked about an older adult having to give up the right to driving, right, and not being prepared um, for that situation.
Yes.
Can you share with us, if you recall from your chapter in the book, can you share with us what some of the recommendations were?
Oh, sure,
Now,
absolutely. There's a lot of rideshare services out there. I know sometimes older adults are a little bit scared of Lyft or Uber or services like that, but they have concierge services. One of them is called Go Go Grandparent, and they will handle everything for you. So they are like your smartphone. You call them, they'll arrange the ride for you. If there's a driver they know that you like, they can do that. They can make sure that that driver's background checked. They do a lot of extra steps to make the older adult feel comfortable. And they also have, I was just reading about a new subscription service that they have where you can have monthly rates. I think it starts at $8 a month, and it goes all the way up to these premium care services. Their total care package includes unlimited rides, meal delivery, grocery delivery, pharmacy services. They can even help you arrange home care and cleaning services. So
wow.
I know it's amazing. I think they're based in San Francisco. So Go Go Grandparent is a great option for people.
Are they national, do you know?
They are national.
They are. Okay.
And for those that have Jitterbug phones, you can connect your Jitterbug phone to these services, and just by hitting 0, calling the operator, you can have all of those on your non-smartphone phone.
Okay. Well, okay, now I need you to take a step back and explain to us what jitterbug phones are.
Well, Jitterbug phones are phones that are made specifically for older adults. So they're not complicated. There's not a lot of steps. It doesn't get out of control, and the phone bills can go to the older adult. It can go to the family. Like I said, you could order services through it. So
Mhm.
it's a great kind of option for people. I like to. I know a lot of older adults are very technologically savvy, but I feel like the super seniors, those that are 85 and older, tend to be a little more hesitant when it comes to these things. So the
Mm.
Jitterbug phone is a great smartphone for those scared of technology.
Do you happen to know if it's something that can be paid for by Medicare?
I don't know about that. I'm not
Okay.
sure. Maybe you should
All
have
right.
them as your next guest.
Well, we'll work on that. We'll
Right.
work on, yeah, we'll see. It takes a little bit longer sometimes to get somebody from the government, but we'll see what we can do. Uh,
Right.
um, the majority of people think that housing and healthcare and retirement, um, they think about those things. They don't think about transportation as much because I think many of us don't anticipate that we're going to be in a situation where we can't drive.
Right.
It kind of goes back to what we were talking about the beginning of the show, that you don't think about what you don't think about, and but it does fit in. But let me ask you a question as an adjunct to that, in terms of making decisions in terms of transportation. Um, are there any other things that you're aware of through NIPAC that people can do with regard to things that they normally go out for? In other words, if they can't drive, what are they going to do as far as groceries? What are they going to do as far as medical appointments and so on and so forth? Are there any other services or organizations that they can tap into for things like that?
Oh gosh, there's so many services out there. Here at NAIPC, we have everything from physical therapy delivered to the home, dog walkers, dental services here in Orange County. We have a member, but there's a lot of other organizations, national groups like the National Aging and Disability Transportation Center,
Hmm.
that can connect people with not just transportation, but other issues related to accessibility. And then the Centers for Independent Living, which is a part of the administration for community living. That's
Uh-huh.
another great government program that helps older adults and those with disability just promote all sorts of independent living programs and opportunities.
I see. Okay. Um, what are some of the reasons that you think that professionals in the older community should join NIPAC for?
Oh, well, I love this organization. But I'm a little biased. It's been around for 15 years. I've been a part of that of this for those 15 years, working up as my way from just a member to executive director about a year and a half ago. So I think this is
Congratulations.
just thank you. So I think it's just a great way to connect with people across the country and find out how other people are dealing with situations, not just in your own, my husband and I here in Orange County do physical therapy, how
Mm-hmm.
situations they're dealing with in other areas, but not just PT, OT, nursing, home care, and how our experiences can help support them. We also have a series called The Hidden Gems of Aging, and I think that's a fantastic one for professionals. It's just little known or unknown products and services that are out in the marketplace. And I think our next presentation is January 17th at Hidden Gems. And we're talking about actually a transportation person talking about options out there to help seniors, figure out when it's time to drive and stop driving. And the other one is called the Zine wheelchair. That is a self-propelling wheelchair, but also helps people stand. So it can be any height, all on their own without having to use other people's help.
Wow.
I know,
Wow.
it's amazing.
I bet that is. I really think I want to hear a little bit more about that if we get back from our break. Um, would that be okay? Can we get into that with you?
Yes, that would be great.
Okay, terrific. Well, we're here on Reverse Your Thinking on KMET. The call-in number is 951-922-3532. We're going to take a small commercial break, and then we will be right back. I'm Marc Gertz. My guest today is Tara Ballman. She is the executive director of the National Aging in Place Council, NIPAC. And we were talking about aging and transportation and a few other things. Tara, before we talk about wheelchairs that get people to walk, maybe you could give us a little bit of background on yourself. How is it that you're doing this, and how is it that you got into working in the older adult marketplace?
Yeah, well, I will give you the condensed version of that.
Please.
I actually went to school for music and music business, music marketing, and I was working in Texas, putting for the MWR, doing entertainment and events at Fort Hood. And I got the call that no child ever wants to get, that my father had cancer, and it really kind of changed the trajectory of my whole life. I ended up moving back to Florida, spent some time with him, and he had just retired and got into reverse mortgages as his second career. So he said, why don't you come over here and check this out, what I'm doing? I got to work with my dad, which was fantastic. I started off doing marketing and processing his loans. And this was back in the early 2000s, and there wasn't really a lot of information on the marketplace at the time. And my mom was a book publisher, so I published a book on reverse mortgages in 2005 called The Reverse Mortgage Handbook. And it was really, I put all the mortgagee letters and all the government information in order, started at the very beginning of the program and read all the way through, and then condensed that into 100 and something pages in layman's terms, and just a very non-salesy educational approach to reverse mortgages. So that led to my second book, Reverse Credibility, which was aimed at originators, talking about the process, the intent, and the laws behind reverse mortgages. And then I went to a company called Financial Freedom, which is no longer around. We were owned by IndyMac Bank back in the day. And I was there when the FDIC took over. So I kind of went a different path in life, met my husband playing softball, got back into the senior world in his business here doing physical therapy. And that's when I got this company back involved in the Aging in Place Council. So that's the condensed version of my my career path. So
Gotcha.
yeah.
Well, it sounds like you've had a lot of really interesting touchstones along the way. But the one thread that I hear with everything that you said has to do with your philosophy in relation to these things, with the concept of giving information so that people can make intelligent decisions on their own. And if I recall, there's an aspect of that in NIPAC, isn't there, with advocacy or something?
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yes, I would love to talk about our advocacy committee. Really something that I like to do with my own personal, interactions, and also with this organization. I think our industry, or people that market to our audience, lead with fear. And it's not about fear, it's about education. And it's like, oh, I've fallen and I can't get up. And, it's always fear based. And I think we really need to change people's thinking and mindset that growing old isn't fearful. It's a right that, my father passed when he was 62 years old. He didn't get to live a long time. And if you do, how can we make that easy? And that's, the goal with knowledge, not fear. But our advocacy committee, I'm really excited. This is something that we're really putting a lot of focus on in the upcoming year. And Louis Tenenbaum, who's been in the housing industry for years, has joined us at NAIPC. He's now one of our members and kind of chairing the advocacy committee. And something that he worked on with his nonprofit last year, the bill was HR 7676, and it didn't get enough legs to pass, but we're going to reintroduce it, and we're looking for people to partner with. And it's basically it's a bill aimed at the middle class to help them age in place. And it would allow people under the age of 59 and a half to withdraw penalty free from their retirements, their 401ks, whatever it is, to make aging in place improvements tax free up to a certain amount. For those over the age of 70 and a half, or whatever that minimum distribution age is, that would count towards the minimum distribution for the year. So it's really a great way for people to access their retirement without being penalized and being able to stay in their home. And it's not just aimed at older people. Obviously, if you're under 59 and a half, it could be somebody who's 25 and was in a tragic ski accident and now needs to remodel their home to be able to stay there, but doesn't necessarily have the funds, liquid funds.
Right.
So I'm really excited that we can promote this legislation. It's something that, regardless of what side you vote, this is something we can get behind and support. It's keeping people in their homes and independent and comfortable for as long as possible.
What's the status of that legislation right now?
Well, it died at the end of the last session, so we're looking for, we're actually meeting in a couple weeks on the 23rd of January. If anyone's interested in joining us and joining our calls, we're looking for new people to connect with and have the bill reintroduced, and new sponsors. So I'm excited about that.
That sounds great. That really sounds great. Well, let's segue back, and maybe you can talk to us for a minute about this chair you're talking about. I'm very curious about that.
Well, I'm very curious about it as well, which is why they're going to be our guests on January 17th at the Hidden Gems of Aging. If anyone that's listening wants to attend that, you can go to ageinplace.org, which is our website, and look at the calendar and attend this or any of the events. You all are more than welcome to attend as my guest. But this is something that one of our members brought to our attention. I believe they met the inventor at a CES conference. And it was really, this person is a filmmaker, is the background, and his father was put in a situation where his mobility was affected, and he didn't want to use a walker, and he didn't want to use a traditional wheelchair. So the founder of this organization started putting together all of his knowledge with the way that things work in the movie industry, and self-propelling and motion, and has created this wheelchair that will allow people to self-propel and rise and fall and corner like it's on rails, apparently. So we'll see.
Wow, that sounds amazing. That sounds amazing. Well, maybe you can come back in a few months and you can discuss where those things are going.
I would love to. That would be great.
That'd be great. Well, we appreciate you coming in. We hope you've reversed some thinking in our audience about some of these aspects of aging in place, and how to utilize NIPAC to get information so they can make intelligent decisions. Thank you so much for coming on. And we're back with Reverse Your Thinking, and I'm your host, Marc Gertz. We just had Tara Ballman on from the National Aging in Place Council, and she did a great job about reversing our thinking about different aspects of retirement and staying in your home, and most importantly, resources, where you can get the information so that you can make an intelligent decision and separate fact from fiction. And on that note, there's a couple of things that I want to talk to you about in the last part of our show today. But it's my experience that if you don't know where you've been, you won't know where you are. So let me read something to you for a moment. The Great Recession began in 2007 and it lasted 18 months, which makes it the longest of any recession since 1929. The economy contracted 5.1%. 9 million people had their jobs disappear as unemployment surpassed 10%. Half of all American workers suffered job losses, pay cuts, or reduced hours at work, or they were forced into part-time employment. The decline was almost a genuine depression. The Great Recession reduced the asset values and wealth of individuals. Many people of you and your parents' ages saw the value of their homes shrink from 25 to 65%, while at the same time, half of their retirement funds evaporated. In total, it destroyed 20% of America's wealth in both home values and investments. Surveys reveal that over 60% of those between ages 50 and 61 at that time had to delay their retirements. 60%. The average age of retirement rose by 3 years. Consumer confidence dropped to an all-time low. Some people feared a double dip recession. This happens when the economy is a recession and then soon after emerges from the recession with a short period of growth and falls back. Fortunately, that didn't happen. Why did I read you that? I read you that because, believe it or not, that wasn't 100 years ago. That was only 14 years ago. 14 years since the recession. But when you compare those numbers to what we've gone through in the last 2 years, makes the last 2 years look like a cakewalk. And that's what perception is all about. Understanding where you've been so that you can balance it over where you are. You know, when we look at leading economic indicators, and I know for many of you, that's not something that you really spend a great deal of time on. And to be perfectly frank, neither do I. But if you want to create wealth, one very simple thing you can do, and with the internet now, it's easy to look everything up because the library is now Google. You can look up what's called leading economic indicators. Before the economy changes, they help predict how the economy is going to do in the future. And that's what you want to try to do. You know, it's kind of like surfing. You don't want to be behind the wave. You want to be on top of the wave. And wealth creation is exactly the same type of thing. If we were to sort of simplify it into a mantra, you know, we could say that there are 7 money mantras for a richer life. Number 1, it's not an asset. I apologize. It's not an asset if you're wearing it. In other words, for those of you that like to look good and dress nice, that's all well and good. But understand that that's not wealth creation, folks. All right? It's not an asset. Number 2, is it a need or is it a want? There's a big difference between the things that we need and the things that we want. Okay? Being able to separate that difference many times is the difference between being able to accumulate or not accumulate wealth. Number 3, sweat the small stuff. In other words, pay attention to the little things that are going on financially in your life. Number 4, cash is better than credit. If you're not the type of person who can pay their entire credit card off every single month down to a zero balance, then you probably need to go on a cash economy. Number 5, keep it simple. Don't put together complicated things. Don't put together pie in the sky. It's real simple. Just stick money in the bank. Number 6, priorities lead to prosperity. What do you need now? We can't do everything at the same time. You can't spend $5,000 on a vacation and necessarily save to buy a house at the same time. You have to prioritize. And finally, last but not least, enough is enough. I remember when 9/11 happened, that 2 or 3 days after it, President Bush got up and he told everybody, go out, go spend some money, right? Go buy something. Because all of a sudden, for 48 hours, nobody was spending a dime. Well, guess what? You need to take that philosophy again. You need to stop acquiring stuff. You don't need it. It's time to reverse your thinking about the things that you need and prioritize what it is that you want out of life for the next 24 months. These are the type of things that we're going to be discussing on Reverse Your Thinking. These are the type of topics that we want to deal with in terms of figuring out what it is that you want to accomplish. Do you like that idea? I hope you do. And I hope you call in and interact with us and talk with us about the things that are important to you so we can help you and your friends reverse your thinking about how to get there. Last but not least, if I have enough time, I want to talk to you very quickly about how to acquire $37,000 of wealth. It's real simple. It's real simple. Stop buying coffee at Starbucks and put that money in the bank. This is Marc Gertz. Reverse your thinking.
Where the living is good.